Welcome to Inside South Florida. I'm Dave Azer. On today's show, we show you Yoga Gangsters, a program that's keeping South Florida kids off the streets. We give you some holiday budgeting ideas and some cool gifts to spend some of that money on. We teach you how to treat your body like the temple that it really is, and we break down the mess that is the Miami Marlins and their new ballpark that you paid for. That and more as Inside South Florida starts now. Terri Cooper's been working with South Florida Youth in Crisis since 2003, and she's created a program called Yoga Gangsters that keeps kids off the streets and onto yoga mats. Terri, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
It's good to have you here.
It's nice to be here.
Okay, so let's talk about Yoga Gangsters. Tell me what made you start it.
Yeah, so in 2008, I was walking to the corner store, the little bodega, to get my cafe con leche. And I was already teaching yoga, and I was already teaching yoga to kids in crisis throughout South Florida, but it was really just me doing my own thing. And I'll never forget, I picked up the front page of the Herald, and right there, it said, right on the front page, that Miami, our FCAT scores had come in, and our schools were failing, our public schools were failing, and that we in Florida decided to cut our education budget and our social services budget by almost in half. And we took $305 million and built 3 new prisons. And to me, what that said was that we as a society, we've decided that these kids aren't worth educating, that we should just prepare for their incarceration, and I just can't have that.
Wow.
So that was the day that I decided to take my own personal work and what I was doing, working in the juvenile hall and in a couple of shelters, and to begin to teach other people and to become an actual nonprofit organization.
It's so interesting because of all of the after-school programs, you hear basketball, drama, debate. You don't hear yoga. So I'm wondering, were kids slow to embrace it? Were kids like, what is a downward dog and why am I doing it?
Well, yes and no. I think the younger kids, they really love it. They just want to play, and we make it playful, we make it fun, and we teach them yoga in a way that's really accessible to them. The older kids make me work a little bit harder, and that's okay. The kids that I'm most in love with when working is those that are dealing with extreme cases of trauma. So kids that are already living within the system, kids that are dropping out of school, kids that have been incarcerated or living in shelters or who have been runaways. And those kids need a little bit more time, I think, to come into the acceptance of yoga, and they make me earn it. And I'm okay with that.
But I would imagine the payoff for you is probably great when you break through. Give me a story, any story of one kid that came through and is just different for it. You
know, my favorite story, I was working in DJJ down in Miami, and I was teaching yoga to the young ladies who were incarcerated there. And you know, I always teach them headstand. It's a really empowering thing to do, and I tell them, you know, you can turn your world upside down whenever you want to. And so I'm coming around and I'm teaching the kids, and you know, I'm getting on the floor and I'm spotting them, and I get to this one young girl who's a little bit bigger than me. You know, she was bigger than me, and I was coming around, and it was her turn, and she gets her elbows down, she gets her head ready, she starts to come up, and she's like, no, I can't. And I'm like, all right, it's okay, you don't have to. But the look in her eye was like, no, I want to. So I do it again, get down there, and the second time she's like, no, I can't. And this time I stop and I just look at her, and we get a little closer, and I'm like, if you want to do this, I got you. I will not let you fall. And it was really remarkable at that moment. She looked deep into my eyes, and I knew that maybe no one has ever said that to her before. And that time she got up, and she was up there, and her legs were running wild, and she came back down, and she jumped up, threw her arms in the air, and started running around the jail screaming. She was having a moment of joy. So a little girl in jail having a moment of joy. It was incredible.
Makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
Tell me about the name. I'm fascinated. Yoga Gangsters. Yeah. Obviously, you hear the word gangsters, and you have all these horrible images that run through your mind. Sure. Why'd you choose that name?
Well, because chose the name because the #1 priority is to connect with the kids. We are a ground-up organization as opposed to a top-down organization. So this wasn't birthed out of a PhD program or out of a university. This was birthed on the streets. And it really comes out of my own experience and how yoga transformed my own life and helped get me out of trouble, and that's the point. And when I walk into a school, I walk into a jail, and those youth see me in my shirt that says Yoga Gangsters, and I say, we're Yoga Gangsters, it immediately captures their attention.
Right, yeah, that makes sense, obviously. Is it more of a physical or a mental or an emotional or some combination of all of those?
You know, it's all of those because what we do through Yoga Gangsters is we help kids manage the symptoms of trauma and poverty. And so through the yoga experience, they get to keep their body fit and healthy, release tension that lives in the physical body, and then once they release the tension, then they're more open and available. And when I get them in that juicy spot, then I start to talk to them about possibilities, about how they can create the life of their dreams, about how they don't have to give up on things that they want to create, and that they really can do anything if they can be calm and centered and grounded and relaxed.
You hear so many stories. As a sports fan, I always hear these stories about these guys that say, well, sports saved my life. You know, I grew up in the inner city, and if not for football, I wouldn't even be alive. Do you feel like, not to put too fine a point on it, do you feel like in some ways you're saving some of these lives?
You know, I can only hope that we're planting some seeds that certainly lead to transformation. What I do know is that when we do yoga, we regulate the nervous system, and you're able to discharge any traumatic energy. So not only is it health and wellness and giving you something positive to do with your time, but you're actually being able to, you're learning how to let go of all the things that have already happened to you, some of the negative things in your past.
Tell me about Studio 305 Yoga.
Yeah, so 305 is my yoga studio in Miami, and we are a Karma Yoga school. So our entire class schedule and all the teachers there, everyone that works there is working there because we do community service. Our philosophy is we do yoga to heal ourselves so that we can go out and help other people heal.
And if people want to get involved, whether it be your studio or this Yoga Gangsters program, how do they find you? You
know, we've got two amazing websites. 305yoga.com is where you can find out more about where you can actually come and do yoga. It's our public studio. And if you want to learn more about Yoga Gangsters, it's yogagangsters.org.
Okay, and the last thing is, whether it's a kid or an adult or a parent, anyone that's thinking, yeah, this sounds neat, but I'm not sure. What's the sales pitch? Why do people need to do this?
You know, I think people need to go to our website and they need to see the pictures of the kids and hear some of the testimonials from the teachers. The truth is that lives are transforming here and people are healing. They're healing from the past and they're opening up to what's possible for themselves in the future. And I think that is the same for the kids that we're serving and the people who are supporting us through the studio as well.
This is what our show is all about, this kind of stuff. So it's so wonderful to hear what you're doing, making such a difference in the community. Continued best of luck and keep on doing what you're doing, okay?
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Last year, Terri worked with 1,200 kids, and she's about to start a 9-city tour to help bring Yoga Gangsters to locations around the country. When we come back, some tips on holiday budgeting and some cool gift ideas.